will feature Anthony Durso, the incumbent Democratic candidate, and Byron Divins Jr., his Republican challenger. After their opening remarks,
I'll remind them.
they will answer your questions. Mr. Divins will speak first with his opening statement.
Sure.
Come to the microphone.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Byron Divins, and I am running for the Assembly. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this, and for you guys staying this late. I know it's a school night. My kids are hoping to stay up late enough to see this, but they probably won't. I grew up in Roslyn, and I am the product of the American dream. My mom, she immigrated from Trinidad and Tobago, came over here legally, married my father. They started a small business, and grew and raised us in Roslyn, us, me, and my sister. And as a result of that, my parents every day pounded into me service. Life is about service. What real wealth is serving your community, serving your family. And much to my mother's chagrin, I took that literally. And after I graduated Albany with my economics degree and Toro Law Center with my JD, I joined the Navy. And so I took serious service very literally. And I went right to Japan. She wasn't very happy about that. And then I promised her that I would do 3 years and come home. And so I just retired last year after 20 years of military service, where I served on the Kitty Hawk and the Theodore Roosevelt. So I've been to the Middle East twice. And the significance of that, especially in this race, is I got to decide where I wanted to go when I retired, where I wanted to raise my family. And I came back to Roslyn to the 16th District, and it wasn't what I left. And Admiral Haley, it was then captain, he was a commanding officer of the Theodore Roosevelt, he had said something to me that stuck. The people that can really see what's going on are the people who had left, and they've got new eyes. They're not in the battle every day. And these are the people that should look around. And when I look around, what I worried about were my children. Because at the end of the day, it's all about your children. And when I went to Roslyn High School, you went to class and you came home. And now, you know, my son, Byron III, who loves the fact that I'm running, because he's running as well for council, and he steals all my signs, scratches out assembly, and writes representative, so he doesn't have to fundraise at all. What I saw was our children, at least at Roslyn High School, and I've spoken on the campaign trail, and it's going all over the place, there's a safety concern for our kids. Almost weekly last year, we were getting text messages from the school saying, hey, stranger danger. People were coming in, approaching our kids. You know, this is their first taste of freedom, and I don't want a tragedy to happen and then decide what can we do. So I jumped in the race, and when I came home, my friends were gone. Taxes were way too high. They all left Long Island because they couldn't afford to be here. They couldn't afford to raise their families the way that we were raised. So I said, let's get in the race, let's make this 2% property tax cut permanent, and let's protect our children. Because if you can't afford to be here and you can't keep our children, what's the point? So that's why I jumped in the race. Thank you.
Mr. Durso.
I'm here. Okay. Good evening to all. I'm really pleased to be here. But first of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this forum/debate. Was that a debate? But anyway.
Not with us.
And also, all of you that tonight, through these debates, you see democracy in action, how we conduct our campaigns here. We try to keep it at the high road, you know, not getting down the gutter, and I'm willing to do that, as you could see from my previous debates and tonight also. I'm Tony Durso. I am the assemblyman in the 16th AD district, assembly district. I am an incumbent. I got elected into office thanks to all who placed a trust in me and thought of me to be enough of a guardian for the welfare of the people in the districts. And they sent me to Albany. Thank you. Now, let me tell you a little bit of who I am and how did I get here. I'm so indebted to America. I'm an immigrant. I came here at the age 21. I had 8 years elementary school. I wanted more education. I was said no. I was told no because they couldn't afford it, my family. I came here alone at age 18. And while I was, doing jobs reserved to the immigrants, like washing dishes, cleaning cesspools, for about a year and a half or two. Then I got into the union, and I went to build the skyscrapers for the next 10 to 11 years. While I was doing that, and thereafter, I got a city job, so that my 16 years of night school fell between the two jobs with 4 children. And my wife, I thank God to my wife, she's the one who raised our 4 children almost all alone. I will leave at 5:30 in the morning, come back 11:30 at night for 16 years. So I'm so grateful to America, and I'm living the American dream right now. So what did I do with my time? First I worked construction, then I took a city job and I became assistant commissioner of architecture, engineering, construction, because my education ended when I did get the Master's of Science from the School of Architecture. So I got the city job and I became assistant commissioner. 30 years or more doing a lot of really fulfilling work where we build affordable housing for the people of New York for 30 years. After that, I ran and I won in 1989 can I borrow from the next question? No. Okay. I'm sorry. I'll see if I can sneak it. Thank you.
Interesting story.
Not doing so much.
Questions?
Wow. Questions now.
I think you're first.
Yeah.
You're first.
Just one moment, audience. Are these my questions? here?
Take your time.
Here we are. Forgive me, Mr. This is your first question.
My first question. Okay.
What is your position on legalizing gambling? That's the question.
Okay. So legalizing gambling. We should legalize gambling in New York. The reason is we've got legal gambling in Connecticut, we have legal gambling in New Jersey, and that's revenue that our state is missing. And as a result, we talk about, and I spoke about in my opening argument, that my friends have left because the taxes are too high. When we have another source of revenue which we can use to help lower our taxes. So I say we regulate it, I say we profit from it, because it's going to happen in New Jersey and it's going to happen in Connecticut. So there's no reason why we should let that revenue just cross our borders.
Mr. Durso.
I'm gonna leave this right here.
I have an aversion for gambling. And I premise on the fact that the government should not be in the business of promoting gambling. It has done enough damage to families. And, you could say, well, I go to the casino, I bring $100 when I finish with that, I stop gambling. Not everybody could control themselves. But I think the cat is out of the bag already. There's so much gambling all around us. How do you bring that back? How do you bring the genie into the bottle again? So it is a problem. I don't believe it, further legalizing gambling, because I have a hard problem. I have a problem now just to accept the situation that we have now with gambling. So I'm against it.
All right, Mr. Durso, you will answer the second question now. What, if anything, can you do to get our property and sales tax deductions back?
Well, I've not thought it over this question. I do not know that there's a movement to do that. What I would do, I will study the situation. I will ask from people whether they're for it or against it, and I will vote accordingly. So I'm not willing to make that decision at this point.
Mr. Divins?
Again, this all comes down to raising our families. And if we can get the sales tax deduction back and bring more money in our pocketbooks, we can help our families. We can help our children go to school. We can provide a better life for them. If we lost the sales tax deduction, the answer seems pretty simple. Just bring it back. I'll introduce legislation as soon as I get into Albany.
Next question, Mr. Divins. What is your response to the recent report on climate change issued by UN scientists? What role can you play in securing the future of the planet?
So I finished my military career at the international unit stationed in Fort Dix, and one of my assignments there was studying climate control. So the first thing everyone has to realize is that climate global warming, it exists, and my focus was the Arctic. You know, with the melting ice caps and the water raise, there is no doubt that we have to address this problem, and we have to leverage technology to use safer forms of energy so we can lower greenhouse emissions and try to reset what the damage we've caused. So the first things we need to do, hopefully there isn't a real argument left that global warming isn't a reality. It absolutely is. And the second thing we need to do is start leveraging our technology so that we're not so reliant on forms of energy that harm our environment.
Yes. Global warming is here to stay. It is man-made with the emission of gases in the atmosphere. And what I would like to see that we have set standards up 2030 to have a 50% of our energy come from renewable, clean energy, vis-a-vis the solar, the wind, and thermal energy. So we're on our way. And when the federal government send us a notification, they would like to start to drill the outer continental shelf for new gas and fossil fuels, gas and oil. I had a public hearing that we protested that we put the federal government on notice, not in New York offshore. Why sidestep? Why digress now that we're making such a progress working with the renewable fuels? Why even spend the time and money to do that where it could be the destruction of the marine mammals and the tourists and the businesses? So I'm totally against that, and that's what I would like to do with to combat global warming.
Next question, Mr. Durso. What is your top priority to achieve if elected?
Top of priorities? Well, I have records of accomplishment at the legislature for the last 2 years that I've been part of the assembly. And I've been working on major issues like health care for all, make health care accessible to all. Health care is not a luxury, is not a a given right. It is it's a human right, so we should have access to our affordable care. I don't care what shape or forms it comes, but we're going to make it available to all, and we're going to make it affordable to all. It's not a luxury, it's not a privilege, it's a human right.
My top priority once I get to Albany is to make the 2% property tax permanent. It's not permanent right now, and it goes from as the winds shift. This year we have it, last year we have it. Who knows what's going to happen next year? It's too expensive Long Island. What we need to do is make that 2% limit a permanent tax so we can move on and make sure that the money stays in our pocket. My second priority will be school safety. You know, I always say this when we talk about school safety. I'm indebted to Senator Phillips. My oldest son, Trey, he's Byron III, we call him Trey, he's at Rosslyn High School right now. And maybe 2 weeks ago or so, could be 3 at this point, we had some crazy guy, methamphetamines. He ran into the school. But thanks to Senator Phillips and the legislation she passed, he got caught in the vestibule. So he couldn't harm any of the students. Those students were saved directly because of legislation she passed. School safety, especially in our district, we shouldn't have a problem with that. We have the means to make sure all our children are safe. So we should do that. And then the third thing that I would like to focus on is veterans. I'm a veteran, and I can tell you now that we have a huge homeless problem with our veterans, and it's a multifaceted problem. We're proud people. We don't ask for help. And we have to be found, and we need to be helped. Our veterans are the reason why we're all sitting here today safe. And so these people need our help. So that's one of my top priorities.
Next question, Mr. Divins. What is your view on having a marijuana dispensary in Manhasset near schools and residential districts?
I was in Manhasset maybe last week before, don't quote me. It was one of those, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I'm absolutely against it. I am raising 2 children. Raising children are hard enough without having a dispensary right near the school or a library where they're selling hats, they're selling T-shirts, and they're easily accessible for our kids to just even see. You know, again, my oldest are starting to ask questions. My oldest is starting to ask, well, what is marijuana? Should we, you know, is it legal? I'm hearing things in school. You know, my parents have always told me, you know, just wait till it's your turn. Raising kids are hard. The questions they ask, you won't be ready for. And, you know, Mom and Dad, you were absolutely right. And one of the things that I know is I'm absolutely against recreational marijuana. When I'm in the assembly, you will not see my name next to that. And I'm absolutely against a dispensary anywhere near a school or anywhere near a library. If they want, I'm not against medical marijuana. I'm against it if it's prescribed by a doctor. I don't want it near the schools. Go to your doctor and get it. I don't want it in a pharmacy because our kids go to CVS all the time. I want it somewhere far away from the children so they don't get influenced and they don't start going down a road we don't want them going down. So I am against it.
Mr. Durso.
Yes. I am totally against it. I made a commitment to fight, and I joined the people that we had a rally with it last Sunday, I think. And I'm on record by writing 2 letters to the Department of Public Health and I tackled the problem from 2 fronts. One, what is the job of the Department of Public Health? Just to give a license to these vendors or distributors, whatever we wanted to call them? And give us so much discretionary power to the vendors that they could go any place, anytime, select the sites with not government, oversight. So that's one angle for which I'm opposed. The other one is that why is it that 3 dispensaries location to be located in the town of North Hempstead? It's the smallest town in Nassau County, okay? I don't want to say not in my backyard, but that's a little too much to accept that 4 dispensaries this company has. One is already in New York, and 3 would be in the town of North Hempstead. Totally opposed to it. Now, even as a convenience, why is it that the people that live on a certain side of the town have to come all the way up here to North Hempstead to buy their medical marijuana? These are 2 ways of which I'm fighting, and I'm committed to fight to the last of, when the decision is made. I hope that with all the petition being signed.
Next question, Mr. Durso.
He wasn't done.
You shortchanging me.
A minute and a half is very short, Mr. Durso. And here is a fine question for you. What actions would you take to support our public schools?
Wow. Well, first of all, I want to make sure that they have the assets to finance school education. I trust the superintendents of the school districts in my districts with all my heart. And what I do for them every year, not only I try to get the biggest amount of the foundation aid, to finance the schools, but also I go for extra by justifying why we need more money in our districts. You take Port Washington, for example. There's new, surge in registration of students coming in. And most of the students that may require ESL, they require special education. They require free lunches. That is money. You should know that special education, 1 year, when you send the kids to a special school, it's $100,000 or more. So I put in every year between the 4 districts about $2 million more. I don't get it all, but I get a good size of it, and I distribute equally to all the 4 districts.
Thank you. I think the first priority, basics, safety. Let's make sure our children go to school and that they're safe and that they can learn. And that includes safety from each other. One of the things that I've learned on the campaign trail and from my children, cyberbullying is a real thing. When I was going to high school, we might have a fight, and then we go home, and the next day, we're friends. Because it kind of ended. There was a natural break, and there's a natural cooling off period. But now with the iPhone and the iPad and all the other things that my kids have that I don't even know about, the cyberbullying never stops. After safety to school, what we need to make sure is our district sends a lot of money up to Albany, a lot of it. And I want to see that money coming back down to us so that we can help provide for the special education. If a child needs special education, I don't want them to look in their eyes and say, I'm sorry, I know we're in the 16th district, I know we're a relatively wealthy district, but we can't afford to help you. We need to make sure that those children are taken care of. And if you need free lunches, then you're going to get free lunch because you can't learn if you're hungry. So we're going to make sure that as much money comes back to us, because we're sending a ton of it up to Albany, let's bring it back to our district.
Mr. Davis, what are you doing to help the immigrant children, especially those right here in Manhasset? Where do I go to help them? Help me help them.
So there are a lot of needs, and I'm assuming the question is about the kids who were separated from their parents and brought here against their will, which I don't think anyone believes that was a good policy. I don't care which president put it in, and I don't care which president decided to enforce it or didn't. The fact is, no one should separate a child from their mother and their father, and that's the basic principle we have to start with. Once you have that, well, what are the needs? Legal representation is one of the needs. We need to organize, and if you can, me personally, maybe I can volunteer as a lawyer. I have friends who are doctors. Maybe they need medical care. There's social work. There are things we can organize to do to help these children. And the priority should be, even though the deadline's passed, the priority really should be to reunite these children with their parents. That should be the number one priority, and then everything else comes after.
Yeah, I remember growing up in Italy after the war. There was a special immigration bill, implemented by the United States government to reunite families, not to separate families. I don't understand why there's zero tolerance. And they separated these kids from their parents, and all this hoopla now, they don't even know what certain number of kids are today. Not only they're not being reunited, but they don't even know where they are. I'm not exaggerating. This is what I read, and I report it to you. I'm totally surprised that this day and age in the United States, where it's the most humane country in the world, always willing to help, people, whether they come here legal or illegal, and separated his families. I just do not understand that. What I would do? Well, I think in the state legislature, we passed a legislation to make it like a sanctuary city that we could get these people and protect them from a further disruption from the federal government. So I supported that.
Question. How will you vote on the ERPO, which is the Extreme Risk Protection Act?
The Risk Protection Act. Can you give me a hint? What are we talking about?
Protection Act. You don't know. We'll just go on to another question. Did you, Mr. Divins, would you like to take it?
Never heard of it. Sure, that would be helpful.
I'm at a loss. I do not know the acronym or what it stands for.
Yes, just a moment.
She's talking about the red flag thing. Okay. Yeah.
I think that's when you need a court order, a judge, to remove it. Empowers the teachers, the parents to. Right. Okay, I know the judge is involved in some way. I support that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Now we all know. Is that right?
So when I'm not running for assembly with Tony here, I'm a family law attorney. And so right now, there are procedures in place. First of all, I do support this. If a parent is worried that there's someone in the house that is a danger, they can go right to family court, and the family court judge will issue an order of protection. As a part of that order of protection, guns will be removed, and a sheriff will have to come and remove it. So there are procedures in place. It can be stronger, so I do support this act. But I could tell you every day I'm in family court, our matrimonial court, and orders of protection are given. And in those order of protections, the guns are removed. So this act just makes it a little stronger. And obviously we support that because we want our kids safe. So yes, we support it.
All right. Next question is yours then.
Better not be an acronym, I don't know. Just saying. It's getting late.
All right. Why have you chosen your political party?
Okay, so here's something I don't know how many people know. I am a registered Democrat. Okay? Yes, see, I didn't think many people knew that.
Why don't you run a primary against me?
Because I'm scared of you. All right. So I am a registered Democrat. And I was thinking about, when I think I told you in my opening, I came home and I was looking around. And I'm also looking at the parties in general. And when I started contemplating where my values lied and where I decided to fall, Frankly, I think both parties are going to the extreme, and if any of you have seen my signs around town, you'll see it says trusted independence. And that's because I've got some left-leaning values, I've got some right-leaning values, but ultimately, I don't think the government should be over-regulating us, and I don't care what the issue is. The government should stay out of our business. They are not the fix to our problems. We are the fix to our problems. I don't care what the issue is. We, as the people, we're smart enough to figure it out in our community, because every community is different. Every community has a different set of needs and values different things. So when I had to make the decision, my values told me to start coming to the Republican Party. And so I've changed my registration.
Mr. Durso.
Yes, I'm a proud Democrat. I've been most of my working life, my adult life, I should say. I'm also being endorsed by the working families, the independents, the women's equality, and the reform. So I guess I must be doing something right to be so. Oh, okay.
Can I hold it?
Just want to remind myself. Yeah, you could hold it like this.
There you go.
Thank you. So anyway, yes, I'm a proud Democrat. I'm proud to have been, nominated by the Democratic Party. This is my seventh election between the town elections and the assembly, and I will carry that banner with much pride. I'm a progressive, and within the Democratic Party, I have a lot in common. Therefore, will not look for any ulterior way to run for a public office.
All right. Mr. Durso.
See.
What is your position on electric bicycles?
Wow. Well, electric bicycle. Why don't we call it a motorcycle? A motorcycle, a small cc motorcycle, cubic centimeters. I haven't heard of this electric motorcycle, and I've been around a long time. And so, if you want an electric motorcycle, maybe you could buy. A bike. Maybe you could buy a small motorcycle.
All right.
Okay.
Do you want Mr. Divins to go on to answer the question?
Is it my turn?
Yes.
I don't tell him what to do. You're in a position to tell him what to do.
You're in the position of power, but. So electric bicycles, the first thing that struck me was safety. I can already see, as you said the question, I can see my 14-year-old is all in favor of electric bicycles, and my 10-year-old is not far behind. I just said I don't want the government to tell us how to raise our kids or do our business, but I also don't want a 14-year-old on a motorcycle, even if you term it an electric bicycle. So we're going to have to study that issue and make some sort of regulations to make sure our kids are safe.
All right. Ready for the next question? All right. Do you think it is right to support boycotting a catering hall just for letting the NRA have an event there?
So, I think Tony had an event that dealt with this. It's a tricky issue. It's the First Amendment. You have a right to say what you want to say. NRA is trying to promote guns, and guns is a very serious issue. Gun safety is one of my top priorities when it comes to protecting our children in our school. But what makes this country great is, and what was ingrained in me, especially with my military service, is I don't have to agree with your position, although you have the right to express your position. So if you peacefully protest or have an event to counter someone else's peaceful event, then I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think the problem becomes when we start losing that word peaceful.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Durso.
Well, by coincidence, the day that the NRA was having that fundraiser in New Park, I had sponsored a common sense gun gun, I don't call control because control implies that you want to take the guns away from the people. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe that there should be a background check to see that the guns don't fall into the hands of people that could harm themselves or could kill other people. So I boycotted that. I was on a sidewalk in front of the inn in White Park for different reasons, but there was one reason I just could not swallow it. They were having a raffle that night. They were raffling knives, pistols, shotguns, and rifle. If you bought a ticket and you won one of those two weapons, you could get out of there without background check, and I guess comply with the existing laws. Was that a signal to stop me, or?
You got 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Okay. I disregarded that signal for a while now, so just now from now to the end, I will look more toward your way here. Okay. All right. So, where were we?
What? Who? What's on second?
You finished with your answer?
Yes, I did.
And she has the stop sign.
Okay.
All right. At this point, we're ready for closing remarks.
Oy vey. So,
Ah,
we go.
Mr. Divins, because he was the first to speak, he'll be the first to speak now.
Okay.
All right. 2 minutes, Ms. Timekeeper. 2 minutes.
Thank you for putting up with us. It's a late night, and I appreciate it. So the reason why I'm running for assembly, I've already kind of outlined, and you know my positions. And one of the things you get with a naval officer is certainty. When I was on the Theodore Roosevelt or the Kitty Hawk or stationed wherever the government sent me to be stationed, I didn't ask the sailor to my left or my right, are you a Democrat, are you a Republican, what's your views? If we had a mission to accomplish, that's what we accomplished. What we did was we took all the information, we were guided by our core values, and we made decisions. And that's what you get with me when I go to Albany. I have some positions. For example, I'm against marijuana legalization. I'm against marijuana dispensaries. I'm absolutely for making the 2% property tax permanent. I also have plans for seniors. My dad, God bless him, and my mom together, they put 2 kids through school, but my dad's 88 years old. He hasn't worked in a little while, and he's still paying taxes. As if at the same rate I'm paying taxes. That's a lot. He's paying around $21,000, $22,000. Hasn't worked in 20, 30 years. That's not right. We have to fix that. We have to make sure that our seniors can live, because they were the ones who brought us here. They took care of us, so now it's time to take care of them. And the final thing that I want to say, once you send me up there, is I will concentrate on veterans. Again, veterans is something near and dear to my heart. They helped us get here. They helped secure our freedom, and we can't turn our backs on them now that they need us. Thank you.
Again, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this beautiful, heated conversation. I don't call it a debate because it is not. So anyway, I've been a public servant for most of my life. I served at 3 different levels of government, and I'm happy with the serving in the legislature, and I would like to return back in January to build on my accomplishments of the past 2 years. I wanted to say that most of my work is done based on families. How do we help the family to cope with some adversities here on Long Island, where the taxes are high, lack of affordable housing, some of the jobs are scarce, the ones that we have that we can't fill them because there's no skills for the jobs that are available, believe it or not. So I'm working for the environment. I work for the family. I work for the gun sense, a background check. I work. By the way, as the member of the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, and also being the chairman of the Long Island Sound, task force, I've held numerous water forums, and I want to continue to do that because we depend on the aquifer for our source of drinking water. Not like in New York City, they bring it from the Catskills. Here we contaminated the aquifers. We just don't know what to do. There's no water to replace the aquifers for us. And so I want to work on all those issues, and also I have some bills that I would like to introduce in January where I'm trying to, and I'm going to try with all my strength, with all my heart, try to take money out of politics. So there's a bunch of bills I'm going to introduce. Thank you very much for being so patient with me.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being an engaged and responsive audience. Be sure to cast your ballot on November 6th.
November 6th.
All right.